Okay, so part two of this massive video. So you've filled out your application, you've sent out different references. Now you just kind of sit back and wait. So let's go back to the instructions and that PDF of the instructions and just talk about how do you kind of guarantee or give yourself a better edge of getting into the National Honor Society. So here's how the process works. Once you turn in your application and all the references come in, there's a selection committee of 5 teachers who will meet in October and will review all the applications, but we do so anonymously, meaning that the teachers who are on the selection committee never see your name. They only see your number. And so therefore we just simply discuss, for example, 2021-89. And so therefore we try to keep it as anonymous and also unbiased as possible. And so we simply look at what your references say about you. We read particularly, most importantly, we read what you said about why you chose that class in that particular, those 3 activities. And then we also read what those teachers and coaches said about you. Sometimes and most times they don't say much. They'll circle the numbers, they'll do a little rubric, and I'll show you what that looks like. But for the most part, they don't usually say a whole lot. So we depend on their numbers, and then we also depend mostly on what you say about why you chose and what you did in those classes and in those activities. That's why that part is really important. After we make our list of candidates, we hand it off to Dr. Feeney, and then he approves that list. And so you typically will find out somewhere in mid-October. I'm looking at the 22nd of October this year for the acceptance letters to go out. And then 1 month later, on the 22nd of November, is when we'll have our induction ceremony. So when we look at your application, we're going to look particularly at your leadership, your service, and your character. So let's talk a little bit about that. So on the back page of this, it talks about your responsibilities as a new member, of how you maintain a 3.7 or higher unweighted, and also your participation in activities as well as your attendance. But I want to focus down here on just simply putting your best foot forward. Before I even worry about staying in a club, let's talk about just simply getting into the club. So you're smart. We know that. But what we want to know is, how are you also a leader? How are you a person of high morals and character? How are you a person who serves others? There are a lot of smart kids in school who have really high grades because that's all they do. They just simply do school. They're not involved in any activities or any clubs. They're not really in any kind of service organizations. They're very quiet in class. They're not leaders. They don't reach out to help others. They're really good, smart students, but they're not good applicants for the NHS. NHS is looking for all 4 pillars. And so you've already proven that you're smart. So now what kind of leader are you? And there are different types of leaders. I know a lot of us may not necessarily be in a position where we have officer positions yet in a club or in our class. We may not necessarily be captains of our sports teams because, once again, a lot of us might be just simply 10th graders going into 11th grade. We haven't had a chance to actually earn those leadership positions. So try to demonstrate other ways that you've been a leader. How have you led others in your class, particularly? How have you led others in that sport or that club or in chorus or band, whatever it might be? How have you led? And you can be a servant leader. You can also be an outspoken leader. There's all kinds of different leaders. Secondly, is your character. And that's probably the most important of all the characteristics that we look at in the selection committee is your character. Your honesty, your integrity, your morals, your willingness to always be the best person you can be. And how have you demonstrated that? And lastly is your service to others, which is usually much more tangible. We can usually see ways that you've served others on your teams, in your churches, in your classes, and things like that. What I will tell you, though, is you have to make sure that you are very specific and explicit. I put it down here in bold for you. Specific and explicit, meaning that if you write that very generally that you often led in class discussions or you helped with vacation Bible school, that may not be enough. Now, they're great things, but you didn't really tell us something. So if you help with Vacation Bible School, give us something specific. What did you do? Did you lead an activity? Did you run the music? What did you do specifically? When you said, I often led in class discussions in my, American cultures class, that's very vague. Tell us a specific like activity that you really showcased your leadership. Those are the things that we remember as a selection committee. So the more specific you can be, the better chances you have of being chosen for National Honor Society. So avoid very general answers. Give me very specific answers. Those stand out to us. They're memorable. Choose your activities correctly, or carefully rather. So when you're choosing your activities as well as your classes, choose them wisely. We try to avoid anything from ninth grade. By this point, you're either in 11th or 12th grade, so there's no reason to tell me about a ninth grade class as one of your strengths. What did you do last year that ninth grade was actually so much better? So there should be something in 10th grade or 11th grade. Um, those classes. Try to show really strong classes as opposed to like a weaker class that everyone has to take. How did you really shine in some of your more academic courses? So those are the ones that I would recommend you using for your teacher references. And as well as for your activities, try to avoid giving me the same activity with three different coaches. So I know you might play softball, but I don't want it to have softball be listed three times and you gave me three different coaches giving you references. Give me softball and then give me something else. Give me something. Give me a sport. Give me something that is community related. Give me something which is volunteer related. Because otherwise, it just sounds like you're a sport person, but you don't really do anything else. And I'd like to see a nice little variety in your interests. Now, maybe you are just simply 100% music. Okay, show me the wide variety in which you use music. Maybe you are just simply a one sport student. You're like, I do this one sport. Okay, then show me the variety of that sport and then in the different ways that you're not always playing, but have you ever had a chance to actually lead a group or to help in a camp or something? So try to think outside the box, but the more variety you can give us, the better chances you have of being inducted. Okay, I hope all that answers that for you. Anyway, I know last year was an odd year because some people were home for part of the year or sometimes even the full year doing some online learning. So that might be some challenges. I'm just simply finding those teacher references. There might be the rare times where you might have to go back to a ninth grade teacher. But we try our best to stay away from those classes and go to things that are much more recent and academic. Try to pick activities that are more recent that show us who you are right now. Okay. So that's that. And then the other thing I'll show you then is you're working on your 2,000 word character description. Sometimes it's nice to actually look and see what your coaches and your teachers are going to fill out about you. Knowing what the target is really a good choice, for lack of a better word. So if I clicked on that link from Schoology, so if I go back to Schoology and I say, I just want to see what they actually have to fill out. So I might click on this Google form just to I'm curious about it. I don't have to submit it. And so I might get in here and say, cool, they're going to ask for their email, and then they're going to ask for your name and then your applicant number. So therefore, every person that you send a reference to, they have to know your applicant number. They have to, otherwise it won't work for them. So they're going to say, hey, what's the applicant number I need? It's 2021 dash and then a number. In this case, maybe 89. And then we're going to ask them whether they're teachers or their activities. Make sure they know. That's really important. Sometimes you pick someone who is your my goodness, you might be your math teacher, but you meant for that person to be your football coach reference. Well, he didn't know that. Or you might say, hey, I need you to be my Interact reference. So why did you put down FCS? Well, they didn't know that's what you wanted. So make sure that when you send them your evaluation, that you're saying, hey, I need you to evaluate me only on this aspect. How was I in the STEM club, not in physics class? So make sure they know exactly what they're supposed to be completing, because that can be very confusing. All right. So once they figure out what they're doing, they're going to either fill out the activity of the teacher, but take a look at what they have to evaluate you on. They're going to evaluate you on your leadership. Are you reliable? What kind of an influence are you as a leader? How did you work as a team? And were you an active participant? We're going to ask them about your character. How docile are you? Meaning, are you teachable? You're not arrogant, but you're willing to learn. You take criticism well. About your ethics. Do you have high standards of ethics and morality and what's right? And do you have you treated others with respect and courtesy? Have you been able to show perseverance, that you've been able to overcome adversity and you support others who also are struggling? That's probably the most important four things that you want to demonstrate to us. And lastly, we're going to ask about your service. Are you tolerant of others? Can you work with a wide variety of team members? Or do you always work with the same kind of people? Your work ethic and how you take on difficult tasks and sometimes put in more time than others do. Your selflessness as a servant, that you oftentimes will take on the most unpleasant tasks, but that's just who you are. Your altruism, meaning this is your ability or willingness to help others without even being asked. And you're also aware that others need help. Right? And so that goes under the category of service. So the more you know what key words we're looking for, use those. And as you explain, you may not hit all those in every one of your references, but you might say, wow, in this particular class, I'm really good at this. And in this other class, I'm really showcased this. And so by the time you read all 5 references, you're like, wow, overall, you seem to hit all those things. No one's a leader all the time. Hopefully your character, your morals are the same all the time. But no one can serve others all the time. Sometimes you're the one who's being served. That's okay. But just trying to show that variety would be great. Lastly, let's get out of this. If you go back to Schoology, if I get back to my references, lastly is this application tracker. Once you have started working through the process, it's good to check on this application tracker. What it is it's a little Google sheet, and what it will do is you can kind of scroll down here and find where your number is. Let's say you're lucky number 9, and you're like, oh, cool. He has received my application. It'll say a yes in here, and I will actually start listing who has actually submitted things. You're like, oh, good. Mr. Heiser turned in his form. Ms. Federoff has not yet. And then Coach Mannion turned his in. And all of a sudden, you're like, cool, things are starting to show up. And so you'll be able to see. It's really important as you get close to the end of September to keep checking this to say, oh my gosh, Mr. Marsh, my 3rd reference has not come in yet. What can I do? Can you help me? And so I'll always be here to help you through the process, particularly if people aren't turning things in. It's good to contact me so that I can contact them to say, hey, what's going on? Because you're going to affect this kid's chances of getting in. So I'm here to help you out as much as I can. All right. It's a long video. I know. Anyway, so those are all the resources that are available for you. Hopefully this video was somewhat helpful. And then once again, if you ever have questions along the way, just simply send me a message. Or if I have you actually in class, just simply ask me sometime. Or if I don't have you in class, just pop in and I'll see what I can do for you. All right. Take care. Good luck to you.